On a night that featured the redemptive middleweight title defense from global superstar Israel Adesanya and a stunning victory to crown the UFC's first ever Mexican-born champion in Brandon Moreno, it says a lot that the biggest roar of the evening came for a fighter who lost by way of lopsided unanimous decision. Don't get me wrong, that was one hell of a moment in the 5th round of Edwards vs Diaz, a moment that took the event's excitement levels to another peak entirely. Because up until that point, the fight was a pretty straightforward one, even with the oddities of Nate's performance. Leon was precise with his offense, making sure to manage his risk levels effectively while still dealing out a considerable level of damage, making the technical difference between the two quite clear. And while the fight didn't really rise to a high pace for the most part, it was still interesting to see Edwards slowly wilting in that final round, because this has been a trend of his career up until this point. But for the opening 4 rounds, Leon looked great. I always do appreciate watching a technician go to work, whether it's an exciting show or otherwise. And as far as Nate was concerned, his playful approach to the majority of the fight, even during the turning of the tide in the final round, made it pretty clear where his head is at in regards to MMA competition. I mean, look, it's no secret that both Nate and Nick have their own philosophy when it comes to winning and losing fights. Or to be more accurate, they make sure to portray a certain philosophy to the world, knowing that their loyal fans and a lot of casual fans will latch onto the narrative no matter what happens. And I don't say this with any disapproval. I love the Diaz brothers. Nick is perhaps my all-time favorite fighter, but even I am aware of how their approach to assessing their own performances has a built-in awareness of how the public perceives them, where, for example, Nick might be controlled on the ground for the majority of a fight, but gets the better of the striking exchanges no matter how few there were. He can turn around to the cameras and tell the world that he just beat that dude's ass, no matter how it looked in the eyes of the judges post-fight. And I don't doubt that Nick and Nate get a kick out of playing the game like this. It's pretty funny, even hilarious, how committed to their bit they are. And again, don't misread my words. I honestly do believe that these two are potentially the most genuine personalities in the sport. I think the world of Nick and Nate. But I also understand that they are playing the game to a T. Neither brother has really made much of an improvement in the areas that would have been seen as their primary weaknesses. Leg kick defense, takedown defense, the ability to deal with a powerful top game. But they clearly are just happy to fight their way, to work on their boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, cardio, to approach MMA how they want to approach it, rather than focus in on being something they're not. And in Nate's UFC 263 showdown against Leon Edwards, his limitations were made very clear, once again due to his inability to deal with leg kicks. And through his somewhat one-dimensional approach to dealing with Leon's multi-pronged attack, he seemed disinterested in pushing the pace at times, coming in with the air of a man who was just happy to be in there. And then out of nowhere, and I mean out of nowhere, he managed to grab the fight's narrative, stick it in his back pocket, and run off with it. If you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads, before leaving a comment to let YouTube's algorithms know that we're fast becoming one of the best MMA channels on the platform. Seriously, we're closing in on 50k here. Do the right thing, people. Thank you. That final minute was as thrilling a 60-second exchange as any moment I can point to in recent memory. And despite eventually turning up the heat, Nate didn't even seem that worried about getting the finish, taking his time at first before eventually swarming Edwards in the fight's dying seconds. Why he didn't push immediately, I'm not too sure. But I suppose it's just crazy to me that Nate, through his stubborn resistance to anything that forces him to change who he is, managed to once again come away in defeat with the narrative completely on his side. Like, I can sit here and talk about Nate and Nick and the way they frame their interviews. I can talk about their attitude to wins and losses. But after yet another moral victory stolen away in the dying embers of a losing effort, I actually don't have an explanation. It's one thing to talk the talk, but to find a way to nearly mount a comeback after a 24-minute beatdown, yeah, that's special to me. Even if he couldn't find the finish. Each of Nate's last 3 losses, his closely contested classic with Conor McGregor, the doctor's stoppage against Jorge Masvidal, and now this fight with Leon. The fact that Nate, in the eyes of his fans, can still at the very least come away from these bouts with the moral victory, that is strange as hell. And before you commenters lose your minds, I know Jorge Masvidal was beating the brakes off of him. Just like I think that anyone who scored the McGregor rematch for Diaz needs to sit down and read the rules of the sport. But Nate, through his actual performances inside the octagon, has managed to keep his train on the tracks, and that's an important distinction. I think that there was just enough competitive merit to each of his last 3 defeats that you could argue for Nate as the quote-unquote moral victor. Again, that's not for me, but it is an approach that can be taken, and it comes as a result of his durability, his cardio, and the fact that he's a danger for all 25 minutes in there, even if he's getting soundly beaten. So yeah, I just found it a little too fitting to ignore. A little too much of a perfect addition to this ongoing portion of Nate's career. Because love it or hate it, Diaz did come away with a victory at UFC 263, leaving him in a better place than even the man who thoroughly beat him over the course of 24 minutes. And yeah, that's kinda all I have to say on the matter. What an oddity Nate Diaz is. You don't even need to like him to see that. But what did you make of this latest showing from Stockton's finest? And who do you think is next in line as he looks to record an actual legitimate victory? Or maybe he won't need to, I don't even know anymore. Do let us know in the comments section below, we always love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Let's make our way to 50k. Thank you for watching.